Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker, and with me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman. And welcome to the NASCAR Darlington Throwback Weekend preview episode. Here we have lots of news and notes to get to in today's episode, namely the next-gen car being announced and revealed to the public here for the first time, with each manufacturer showing off their new look for 2022 and on earlier this week. And we also have our fantasy preview as per usual. I'm also going to give you my top 5 throwback paint schemes in this one as well. So that should be a fun little tweak to this week's episode. But before we get into all of that, how are you doing today, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm doing good. A bit of a fun week here with next-gen cars finally being released. Looking pretty snazzy. I got to say, we'll get into that a little bit more, but at least in terms of the look, they look pretty damn good. Darlington coming up this weekend, back on 750 horsepower as well. So a nice little added bonus there, but a lot of fun stuff coming up, and excited to break it all down here today.
Absolutely. We start off today's episode here with some good news on Derek Lancaster. Yes. An update from him. He has been treated and released from the hospital and is now recovering back home in Virginia after that Talladega accident a couple weeks prior. So really great to see Lancaster on the mend, and we wish him all the best as he continues to recover from those injuries that he suffered in that very scary looking wreck at Talladega Superspeedway. So wanted to preface that off the top of this show, but let's get into the next gen car, because that's really the big news story of the week here. It's something we've been waiting for. It's been an extended delay after being pushed back a year, obviously due to the pandemic, and we get to see what they all look like: the Ford Mustang, the Chevrolet Camaro, and then of course the Toyota TRD Camry. They did not go to Supra for Toyota this time around like they do in the Xfinity series. So lots of new features here in this car, but your just the initial impressions here, Kyle, on the actual cars themselves. Of course, we'll look a little bit at the techie stuff in a little bit here, but just your overall first impression of the look and, the announcement itself.
Yeah, obviously right now we don't have a ton of specifics in terms of what horsepower they're going to run, aero package, like a lot of these like mostly important things when it comes to the actual on-track product. But right now, the important thing is, what do the cars look like and what direction are we heading in? And I got to say, I'm a big fan of how they look. I really like how they try to incorporate more like the stock back in stock cars kind of motto that they brought up there. And obviously you're not going to go all the way to the extreme, but I think to keep it a race car, but also try to incorporate more aspects that you would see in a regular Mustang or Camry or Camaro, I think they did a really good job, because you can actually see, specifically in the Mustang, which I think is everyone's favorite when we look at things here, it really does, when you look on it head on, look like a Mustang that you would see on the streets. And so I really like the look of the cars. I got to say, as controversial as it is, I do kind of like the look of the single lug nut. I know you don't like it very much, but I got to say, I was kind of expecting it to really like draw my attention and be like, wow, that's kind of ugly. I didn't hate it, especially on the Mustang when you had the blue rims and everything like that. Like, I kind of like the look there. But I got to say, overall, for the look of things, I think NASCAR basically did as good of a job as you could possibly hope for. Just when you look at the cars, and especially the Mustang as well, they look mean. They look like race cars, but they also resemble kind of their street counterparts. So I think NASCAR did a really good job on the design portion of these. Remains to be seen what it'll be like when it's on track, the horsepower, aero package, all these kind of things. But I got to say, in terms of the look, I'm a fan.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of a mix of like a late model and your street car, basically. It's a
GT
really
in there as well, like
interesting combo, right? It's just a mesh of everything from kind of like the Gen 6 to an extent, as well as all these other racing counterparts, and as well as your actual street car themselves. So I agree. I think the cars look really nice. I'm a little bit iffy on the rear end on how it looks to an extent. We'll see how it kind of looks for a super speedway race as well with the bump drafting, because it's a curved bumper. So I don't know how that might impact anything, but definitely an interesting little tidbit there, because they've said that this car is universal. It's going to be run at your road courses, your super speedways, and your mile-and-a-half short tracks, what have you. It's going to not really change like we have seen in the past in some other generations of race cars. But the car itself, I think it looks really great, and obviously the Ford is everybody's favorite, and I think it
looks so damn good.
The front of it just is ridiculously nice. There's a lot of intricacies to it that if you just joining the sport or you're just watching it for the first time, you may not pick up on it. But for people who have watched it for many, many years like ourselves, there's definitely some interesting things. Let's look at some of the new features on these next-gen cars themselves. So the splitter, it's looking a little different. It's stepped up in the middle about, I guess, maybe a quarter on each side, maybe even less than that, a fifth on each side. It's where it usually is, but then the rest of it in the center part is raised up a little bit to try and prevent these splitters destroying race cars on grass racetracks in the infield where they just get absolutely tore up, as well as giving a little bit of valence underneath the cars as well. That's how many of the Generation 4 car was remembered, the most revered probably car in NASCAR history, and that had a lot of valence underneath the car, and that's why it performs so well. So NASCAR getting a little bit closer to that to an extent, not anywhere close to it, but at least they're making a conscious effort of going to that. A shorter greenhouse. Fun fact, I didn't even know that it was called a greenhouse on top of the car prior to this. I got to be honest. I didn't know that was what it was called.
I'm with you on that one.
It was a new term for me, but the essential roof of the car itself is shorter, and then a shorter deck lid as well, because it's been kind of condensed a little bit, which it looks okay. I was always a big fan of how big the quarter panel was, but I don't mind the way this one looks with that. Single lug nut, as Kyle mentioned. Look, I'm not a fan of it. I'm a sucker for the 5 lug nuts. I'm curious to see how pit stops will actually look, and I think it may take a little bit of a little bit of just a storyline in a race where like there's a loose wheel or something like that. I think that's going to be basically not even mentioned at all, or not even a problem for these race teams with it just being 1 lug nut. So curious to see how that plays out.
If you got 1 lug nut loose, you're probably screwed.
That's the thing, though. I think when they say
some Kurt Busch stuff in here,
we're increasing safety, but let's just say they don't get a lug nut tight. I think it's even more unsafe on this side of things than having one.
The argument is that you wouldn't necessarily have that scenario. But
I know, but just in case, you never know if somebody's trying to rush it. I'm curious to see how that plays out. The sequential shifter with 5 gears as well. That seems to be interesting. I'm a sucker for the H pattern as well, but I'll take the sequential. What are your thoughts on this one?
That one is interesting to me because I like the 5-speed just because of the added dynamic that you can get in terms of just having that extra gear means there's going to be more shifting, and not just in terms of going from 1st to 5th instead of 1st to 4th, but at certain tracks and specifically on longer runs and stuff like that, you're going to see a lot more 5th to 4th or even down to 3rd kind of shifting. So
short track
like
should be cool.
I like the idea of that, and I like the differences that you get, because for all of Pocono's faults, the one silver lining to it is that you do get kind of the different driver styles in terms of shifting and stuff like that. And that's a little tidbit that I really like in racing, and seeing the different driving styles of who likes to stay in that higher gear, have that extra rotation and whatnot. If you decide to go to a lower gear, have more torque, stuff like that. So I like that. I would have preferred it to be an H pattern still, just because obviously like there's no real other racing series that still have at the elite level kind of that H pattern style. GT cars, Formula One, obviously all open wheel stuff. At the high level is all sequential paddle shifting. At least it's like the supercars down in Australia, where it is still the stick there, which is cool. So interested to see how that works, especially on some of the shorter tracks, because we could see a lot more shifting come into play. Excited to see that, but I am going to miss the H pattern stuff.
Yeah, I think there's just something sentimental, I guess, about it, nostalgic about the H pattern. But yeah, I mean, the inside of the car looks a bit gimmicky or just looks kind of weird because the dash is so far away from the driver now. It's got like this. Like, I'm not a fan of that at all. I think it looks really, really dumb, and it looks smaller as well. So I'm not sure how that's going to actually play into it, because it's got like this kind of like shelf. I don't know if they're just expecting like a drive-through service or something coming in there so the drivers can eat while they're driving or something. But there's just like this, nice shelf there before you get to the actual, heads-on display. So
there's going to be a phone holder there, so if there's any red flags, they can play games.
Exactly. They just put their mask, like their essential stuff there and everything. It's just going to be used as a big sponsor. By the time this car comes
around, we don't need any masks.
That's true. That's true. You mentioned Pocono quickly there. We'll just throw this in here. Pocono will have 100% capacity for their doubleheader weekend in late June. That's all I'm saying about it. Congratulations, Pocono. You're going to have 100% capacity. You got good fans out there for the track, but that's about
many
it.
people there, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to go to Pocono?
I don't know. Pocono usually has good attendance, but
yeah, exactly. Those are about the 40,000 people that actually like that track. So yeah, but also as well on the new car we have head louvers. I believe I'm saying that correctly, and they're different for each manufacturer on the hood. So it's caused a little bit of stir on social media on like how the sponsors will be presented on the hood in terms of the actual wrap itself or how they want to paint it on there, because it's going to look a little bit different for each manufacturer because it's kind of like an indent in the hood, and it's curious to see what each manufacturer kind of thought would suit their car best. And we've seen over this past generation of car how it's evolved so much. We've seen Chevrolet start off with the SS, and now it's in a Camaro.
Yep.
We saw the Ford with the Fusion initially, which I thought still looked good, but the Mustang is obviously preferred in terms of
the Mustang.
I thought the Fusion looked good, but I think the Mustang is
solid, but.
And then Camry has kind of had different looks to their car over the years as well. So I'm curious to see, because these are like the main or street cars for these manufacturers themselves, if we will see much evolution in terms of the look of this car as we've seen over the past, I guess, 8 years with this past generation of car. That's interesting to me as well. I think that's just an interesting tidbit, because we've seen some manufacturers struggle with some of their variation of cars, and some of them have excelled. So curious to see how that looks out. The hood louvers, itself looks decent. Like I don't mind them. It's kind of like what they had at the All-Star race a couple of years ago. I think they were kind of trialing that there. So yeah, I guess it stuck around. And then as well, the chassis and bodies are built by a single vendor and distributed to the teams rather than the teams building them themselves. So they don't have to build the parts in shop. They're all going to be sent to them, and they just have to assemble it. So it's like a kit car to an extent, but there's going to be a lot of flexibility in terms of how teams are going to be doing
series in that regard. Yeah, not all the way, but enough to where it'll make a financial impact on the teams. Bring the gap between the top teams and the mid pack and lower teams closer, which is what every racing series is attempting to do at this point. So interesting in that regard, and also kind of cool to see how many different companies and automotive companies they had involved in this process, whether from everything from Dallara to McLaren, and there was a lot of people involved, which is really cool to see.
Exactly. Yeah, it was quite the parts list. If you haven't checked it out, I think Bob
really
Proctor's probably retweeted it out.
Tweets out everything, so.
Could be surprised, really. But yeah, check out that list. It's pretty interesting to see who's the vendors for this next generation of NASCAR. So in terms of the actual car itself, that's all of the big stuff that came out of it, the actual look itself. And there's a lot still to be determined on terms of what package we're going to be using, how big's the spoiler, how much horsepower is this thing going to have.
That's the big one.
It's rumored that it's going to be pretty similar to what we have with this generation of car. Unfortunately, I think that's pretty obvious. Should be 750 horsepower at minimum, and hopefully you get up to 950. But I think this car would excel in these conditions where
at least try it, right?
There is literally no harm to try it at select races. Even just give it a shot. Do what you're doing now. You just try 750, crank it up to 950, and you use 750 as your base package. But we all know NASCAR, likes their manufactured product, as we like to call it on this show. They manipulate the races to an extent in terms of bringing out these cautions and getting these restarts together and have them as close as possible for as long as possible, even though it may not generate as much passing. So, and driver skill doesn't really come into play as much anymore either. So that would be crucial, I think, for NASCAR if they're looking to really build the sport. Bring the driver back into this. And if you're bringing this sequential shifter in, that's a huge part of the driver's driving style itself. So, I'm just praying to God that this thing works out, because at the end of the day, looks don't matter if the car is absolute trash on the track and we don't get a good racing product out of it. So I'm hearing no excuses. They've had plenty of time to test this thing. You've had an extra year to get this thing ready. If this thing sucks when it comes time for 2022, we're going to be here. You're going to hear it. I'm going to be letting them hear it full blast. So just overall, your final thoughts on really the next gen car and just your ranking in terms of looks. I know Ford's probably at the top, but I mean, second and third.
I'll start with that. Ford, the Mustang, I love it. My family's always been a Mustang family. When my dad drag raced, we had, I think it was a 94 Mustang. I apologize if I got that year wrong. I was like 7. Mustang number 1, obviously. I think Camaro number 2, and then the Camry just kind of is more the basic look, which is what you would expect also for the Camry. Toyota doesn't have that kind of same like muscle car history that like a Camaro or a Mustang would. So it's obviously a bit of an unfair advantage in that regard. But
yeah,
you know what? It's what happens on the racetrack, not necessarily the looks. But in terms of looks, I'll rank them in that order. And it's not to say the Camry is bad or anything like that. Just compared to the other two, it's a little more plain or basic. And maybe part of the paint scheme or the liveries that they kind of announced it with plays into that as well, because the Mustang one looked awesome with the Ford blue. The other two a little more white based, so maybe that's impacting things a little bit. But in terms of overall, I like the direction that they've gone in terms of the car itself, the look, some of the kind of extra stuff in terms of having the chassis and stuff like that coming from one central source, trying to make things more fair across the grid, have more players week in, week out. I'm concerned just in terms of NASCAR's general direction, in terms of the lower horsepower, keep things close, all these kind of things that we've seen over the last few years. We were hoping that it would be a quote unquote temporary fix to try and make the current car better at tracks where it was pretty dull. And then once this new car came around, we would jump back up to 750 horsepower, 950 horsepower, really get the fast, mean cars going again. And it seems like at this point that they've kind of become a little infatuated with the extremely close manufactured racing that we get right now,
I agree with that.
Restart dependent and stuff like that. Obviously, once we get final announcements and stuff like that, we can make final judgments. But in terms of the car itself, I'm cautiously optimistic. In terms of NASCAR's direction, though, I'm concerned. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with you on everything you just said there. We talked about that a lot on this show so far, and just in terms of our concerns on NASCAR and how it's looking at the future, not only this car, but, you know, beyond that as well, and how they want to take this car into the future and try and grow this sport. So I mean, I miss a lot. I think I've kind of hit my breaking point with this car to an extent now. Like, I think I'm just ready for a new change. I need some fresh. And I just cautiously optimistic of how it end up for them practice next year, most likely all of the races, which will be huge for the race, also for just the entertainment factor. I think that will contribute to longevity with the sport, so that should be nice. But yeah, I mean, I just missed the 2014 kind of generation of this current car where it was fast. You saw track records left, right, and center. I think that's what NASCAR needs to try and promote. I think that's a huge compelling point for and selling point for fans to come back and look at these tracks, because they're the fastest, you know, stock cars in the world. And that's not the case right now. So it's just unfortunate that you have the lower series that has more horsepower and less downforce, and compared to their top premier series, like something just doesn't seem right there. So they've got some stuff to iron out for sure. The looks look great. We'll see what the on-track product holds next season. So they'll have some test sessions throughout the year with multiple cars on track. I think they said they're going to do Daytona later on in the summer. So, we'll keep you updated on the show if anything happens with the car once they announce the package and finalize that stuff. Probably won't see that till the fall, maybe, I would say.
Yeah, probably for a while.
It's going to be a little bit here, but at least the cars are announced. And similarly to Kyle, I've got the top 3, Ford, Chevrolet, and Toyota, as the looks are concerned. So I think that does it for the next gen kind of discussion here. Looking forward to what it has for the future. Optimistic, but, you know, a little bit hesitant at the same time with what the future has to hold. But we move on to the next little bit of news here, Kyle, and it's a bit of a sore spot for both of us here. You know him, you love him. It's our fellow Canadian Raphael Lessard, and unfortunately, he is pulled out of the remainder of the Camping World Truck Series season with GMS Racing due to a lack of funding /sponsorship. So, unfortunate for him there. We had him on the show, our first NASCAR driver interview on the show earlier this year. So make sure you go check that interview out. It was still a lot of fun to talk to Raphael, and we were optimistic that he could get the whole season under his belt. Was just closing in on getting some finishes consistently here. Showed some speed in the first part of the season here with getting some stage finishes, and just couldn't quite get that final checkered flag finish going for him. But he was right outside the playoff spot right now. He probably would have pointed his way in if things kept going the way they were. But unfortunately, the sponsorship money ran out for Raphael Lessard. And as a result, that 24 truck, is going to be most likely a rotation vehicle for the remainder of the season. Should be interesting to see how they handle that. We have Ryan Reed in the truck, this weekend. So just unfortunate here for Raphael Lessard. Kyle, he hopes to join the team once again in 2022 with just his efforts being fully on getting some full-time sponsorship for him next season, but things just didn't quite go his way this year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see because for somebody like Lessard, the big thing is as a young prospect coming up is getting that seat time. And he's somebody that didn't really do much in terms of ARCA. He did late models and stuff like that, but he did take a bit of a big step going to KBM last year. And we saw him struggle a little bit with the lack of practice time and really spending the first couple of stages as his practice time and really only getting a third of a race to actually go and race. And we saw the results start to come at the end of last season. This year, the average position has been a lot better than the finishing position for a lot of cases. Yeah. He's been caught up in a lot of stuff. To be fair, some of it his own doing, but in total, I think the big thing is he was starting to show some of that potential that got him a Toyota development deal, that got him a ride at KBM, that ended up getting him that second chance as well at GMS. And he's been one of the better GMS trucks outside of Creed and Zane Smith as well this season, only a couple of points back of a playoff spot. But money is king in motorsport, and it's unfortunate to see. But going into the season, if you can't forget that it wasn't a full-time deal. It was a partial season where they were hoping to secure more for the rest of the season. Kind of went in, saying that it would be full-time and behind the scenes trying to figure stuff out as they went along. And unfortunately, as the finishes started to come, the money started to dry up as well. So it's unfortunate to see for Lessard. It's unfortunate to see for that for the 24 truck, because I thought that they could absolutely, as you mentioned there, point their way into the playoffs. Right now, there's been a few bigger name trucks that we expected to be kind of firmly in a playoff position that haven't been so far this season, specifically looking at Chandler Smith so far this season, who kind of similar to Lessard has had some good runs, but has had some bad luck as well so far this season. And even through that, Lessard only a handful of points outside of a playoff spot versus Chandler Smith, who is essentially a full race out of a playoff spot right now. So unfortunate to see. Obviously, we would have loved to see Lessard get the full season as a Canadian driver, as somebody that we've had on the show. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is the future of his career, not just the season, and having this extra time to look for sponsorship into next year where more companies are more financially stable, all these kind of things. Seems like the relationship with GMS has gone really well in terms of kind of the camaraderie between the teammates there. The relationship with Chevrolet as well is something that he mentioned on our show as being a big thing for him going to GMS as well. So optimistic that he'll remain at the team into the future. But for right now, that fifth truck, the 24 at GMS, is going to be more that rotation that we kind of saw last year, which is unfortunate to see.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. Yeah. I really do, because it's just been a whirlwind 2021 for him. You know, he got dropped by KBM, had to find a ride. GMS thankfully picked him up, and, you know, they did their best and they got as much as they could. I'm a little bit surprised that it's gone so bad, like so soon. I expected it to be a little bit more gradual, where he would maybe do a little bit more part-time stuff. But the fact that he's kind of done completely for the year is a bit surprising, especially considering the time. It's only May and the season goes till November. It's fairly early on, and it's even less than what they kind of had planned for him for his part-time schedule when they first announced him with the team. So just really unfortunate for Lessard. And there's no doubt that he has tremendous talent. It's just fine-tuning that. He hasn't had a fair shot yet, in my opinion. No practice, no qualifying where he can really fine-tune that truck going into a race weekend and prove his speed. He's got great one-lap speed. It's just one thing after another, it feels like, for Lessard, and he just hasn't been caught that break that he really, really deserves. So, of course, we're going to have a little bit of bias to it, but I think anybody would feel for a guy in any situation like this that has a competitive truck outside of a playoff spot, barely. I thought he was much more impressive than Chandler Smith has been so far this season, where he's been putting himself in the right position, just hasn't had the luck in those situations. So it's just been one thing after another. And we wish Rafael Lessard all the best on his sponsorship, trying to find that and secure it for next season, which I'm sure he will do. Hopefully this added time here, he's going to have a long time.
Yeah, he'll be back.
A long spell here where he can secure that sponsorship. And it's just, pains us to really bring that up because we are such big fans of him. As soon as I get the hoodie in the mail, he's done for the year, unfortunately. So it is what it is, but unfortunate there for Rafael Lessard that his Truck Series season seems to be done. We'll see if he maybe comes back at maybe one or two if they need to fill a race, but for right now, he's done for the year. So we'll wish him all the best over the next couple of months, and we'll bring you up to date if he finds any sponsorship for next season. Speaking of the Chevrolet camp, we'll move over to the Xfinity Series. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is making his only one race of the year, as he usually does the past couple of seasons. Once again, at Richmond Raceway on September 11th, later this fall. Unilever is going to be the sponsor for it, and United for America is the paint scheme. Really cool initiative. It's to recognize those that we lost on 9/11, of course. It will be the 20-year anniversary of that painful day for Americans and for many, many people around the world. So the fact that the race is being done on 9/11, as well as this paint scheme, really great to see Dale Earnhardt Jr. back behind the wheel of a car. And he ran well here in that race that he did for the Xfinity Series. I think it was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, when he did that. I
think so.
Maybe it was last year. I can't quite remember.
No, it wasn't. No, last year was the Homestead one he did.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. Homestead, then it was Richmond, and then I think before that was Darlington, right? So, whatever it was for Dale Earnhardt Jr. This is his second opportunity here at Richmond, and he led the most laps in that race that he was last in the Xfinity Series here at Richmond. Couldn't quite seal the deal there for the win, but definitely one of his better tracks, and I would not be surprised if Dale Earnhardt Jr. could go out there and win the race, and what a great story that would be on 9/11, the anniversary of the date itself, 20 years later, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. wins a race. I think it all would seem right in the world, wouldn't you say, Kyle?
Yeah, so Dale Jr. Homestead last year finished 5th. The year prior was Darlington, where he finished 5th.
Oh, really? Has it been 3 years since that?
Yes, it was the first one there, 2018, where he finished 4th at Richmond. And Richmond has been a track that he's returned to the Xfinity Series a handful of times, even while he was still actively driving to go and do. It's one of the tracks that he really likes the most. And when you factor in the fact that it is on 9/11, and Dale Jr. was, of course, the driver to go out and win after 9/11 at Dover, all the classic replays and pictures from that. It's a driver that does have a lot of ties to that date and helped a lot of healing for a lot of people. So really cool to see him return to the track at a track that he succeeded at recently, get back behind the wheel in general, which is always awesome to see, but especially so doing so on a very important date for a lot of people.
Yeah, he's going to be doing the doubleheader. Of course, NBC taking over the coverage halfway through the season. We'll probably see him as their in-race reporter for their. I mean, that's
They'll
just
milk as much of that as they can.
I love that. I think it's always great when Junior does that. And, I think in that respect, I'm happy that he's doing it with NBC as co-workers instead of Fox, if that makes any sense. Just because of how he does that as his regular job. Right? Yeah, with Homestead. So they didn't really get to harp on it as much as what NBC could, because it's obviously their colleague. But I think this year with, Clint Boyer and Jeff Gordon in the booth, I think it could be fun still if Junior were to have done that. Like, it was rumored to do that Spring Martinsville race, but of course Josh Berry, I think, was a suitable replacement for that race, obviously. So
hot take there.
Didn't need much info to back that one up, but happy to see Junior back behind the wheel of a race car. He says he misses it basically every week on the Ask Junior portion of his show. So just good to see him get that one race of the year. And this is the first time since he's been out of in retirement that Hellman's will not be the sponsor of that car for his kind of one race. So cool to see have a new sponsor come on board there to, of course, pay tribute to the people that we lost on 9/11. So that's great for Dale Earnhardt Jr. The last two little bits of news here. Brad Keselowski will be without his regular crew chief, Jeremy Bullins, this weekend as part of team protocols. I believe that has to do with COVID. They didn't really get into any specifics on the situation, but you would imagine so.
But also for just personal reasons and whatnot, you can also understand why they wouldn't specify. But of course, our best wishes are with Jeremy Bullins if there is anything going on there. Yeah. Who is it that's taking over top of the pit box there again? I think the name was Grant Hutchins, I think, that I saw. One of the engineers on the team.
I didn't make a note of it. The one time I don't make a note of this.
I saw it just a few minutes ago, so I apologize. But
whatever it was.
Let's see.
Man.
Jeremy Bullins. Let's look it up. Crew chief out. Yes, Grant Hutchins, team engineer.
Yeah, Grant Hutchins.
Sorry.
No worries. No worries. Damn it. I've come so prepared to the one thing. But for Keselowski, we'll see. Sometimes it pays off for these guys to have a secondary crew chief at top of the box. We've seen that plenty of times, or namely Jimmy Johnson without Chad Knaus. But then again, that was Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus. But it's just an interesting storyline, especially since he is the pole sitter for this throwback weekend at Darlington. So I want to make note of that. And as well, to round out the news and notes here for this episode, a bit of a fun one. Mexico City, Denver, the Pacific Northwest. Whoa, all right, Pacific Northwest and broader North America are being considered in the preliminary drafts of the NASCAR 2022 schedule. Oh my God.
I love how you focus on the Pacific Northwest instead of the broader North America, but
okay, that's just my place. It's my home. And of course, on top of Chicago being a rumored street circuit as well.
Knowing your luck, they would go up to the Pacific Northwest when you're out here in Ontario.
I know, but screw it. I fly back. I don't care.
Yeah, I know you would.
But man, come to Vancouver. But we got plenty of racetracks out here.
Used to be an IndyCar race out there.
We're going to have Formula E in Vancouver as well now. So
looks like it's coming through. That's going to be fun.
Huge. As soon as I go back to Toronto, everything comes here. Abbotsford gets an AHL team. Lovely, everything. But to get back to the racing side of things here, really cool to see that they're looking internationally here, as well as just beyond their usual landscape that they're looking at for NASCAR tracks. And if we can grow that audience and just get a new fan base and expose itself to new markets, that would be huge for the sport. And obviously, we have our preferences on where we would like to see them come. North of the border to, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve would be great. But Toronto Street Circuit would be lovely as well. I think there's a lot of potential up here in Canada. Come on, NASCAR. Don't let us down here. Don't give us this hope, Ben Kennedy. You can do it, buddy. Just give us the races up here. Just a couple, maybe one, maybe two. We aren't asking for much, but just give us a little bit to salivate at and look forward to for next season. But what do you make of this news here, Kyle? Mexico City, previously on the NASCAR calendar at the Autodrome Hermanos Rodriguez, I believe.
Yes, look at you go.
In 2008, I believe, is the last time they were there, maybe 2009 for the Xfinity Series, and it's been quite some time since they were there. Denver, a whole new marketplace there. Chicago, we had Chicagoland Speedway that is no longer on the calendar, so they're trying to compensate with that and bring us the street circuit, which would be really, really cool in Chicago itself. Because remember, that used to be the playoff opener. It was a huge venue there, lots of fans out there in Chicago. It would be nice to get back there to the Windy City and Pacific Northwest and broader North America. So what do you make of those interesting hotspots that NASCAR may be looking at for the future?
How do you not love it? Like it's exactly what you want from NASCAR going into the future in terms of the schedule making, and it's mixing things up, going to different places, going to new places, and just in general, making the schedule more interesting. Because as it's been for the past few years, this year not included because they did change up quite a bit, but it got very stale. You're going to the same places at the same time of the year, every single year, and it was kind of the same thing over and over again, with just kind of driver changes being the only differences. That's not what you want from a schedule, though. You want to keep things fresh. You don't want things to get stale. You want to try new places. You want to go to new markets, all these kind of things. And NASCAR has taken a big interest, of course, in road courses, but specifically street courses, because I don't know if you know this, but racetracks aren't usually in the heart of downtown. Street courses, on the other hand, you can make those downtown. And when you're talking about markets like Chicago, if you're talking about Pacific Northwest, if you're talking, I don't know, Canada, those street circuits are very appealing to NASCAR in terms of hitting those big markets. We see the Chicago street course going to be on the iRacing schedule. We see things like potential interest in Toronto street courses. We see interest in going to Mexico City for their road course there, which they've gone to in the past and has had awesome races and dramatics there. Just think the 2007 when Juan Pablo Montoya punted Scott Pruitt for the win, stuff like that. So
fun fact, Kyle Busch won a race there.
Yeah, he won the last one in 2008, I'm pretty sure it was. So when you think about all this stuff, going to new markets is the best thing that you can do into the future. It prevents stale schedules. It opens you up to new markets. It opens you up to new fans and stuff like that. And it's awesome to see them at least explore the idea. Actually going through and the logistics of getting street courses and new tracks is obviously much more difficult. Yeah. But when you look at NASCAR itself having interest in going to new places, when you look at track owners looking to revive places like Nashville Fairgrounds, it's all really
Wilkesboro now.
Yeah, it's all very exciting going into the future here, the possibilities that we have on the schedule. So obviously, we were very impressed by the schedule this year in terms of the shakeup that we got. But there's still a lot more that they can do with the schedule in terms of mixing it up, not going to the same places every single year. You don't need a set schedule to go to every single season. And it's exciting to see them explore these possibilities and list things like broader North America, like Pacific Northwest, like street courses. It's all very, very exciting.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that even if we don't get a Cup Series race at some of these venues, we look at the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series to try these venues out, because there's too much similarity between the schedules, specifically the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series right now. And I think it's really important because we saw the Xfinity Series go to these cool tracks and the Cup Series go to these different tracks, and I think that's what provided these, this variety and really helped grow the sport at a grassroots level to an extent. So I think that would be important. If we can't get the Cup Series, that's obviously unfortunate if it's the right venue, but if we can get the Xfinity Series back at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, or we can have anything like that.
Cup Series, if we get a Cup Series race at Gilles Villeneuve, all sins will be forgiven. I could not care what NASCAR does at all. If we get a race at Gilles Villeneuve with how amazing those races were in the Xfinity Series, could you imagine?
Okay, quick question. Would you rather have it at Gilles Villeneuve, or would you rather have a Toronto street course?
I would rather Gilles Villeneuve because it's a proper racetrack in terms of they've been there before. You know that the racing is exciting for stock cars. When you look at the back straight as well, that's really exciting. I think street courses are still much more hit or miss. Mm-hmm. And so I would rather see it at Gilles Villeneuve, just also the Formula One ties and stuff like that. I think going to those A1 circuits is also a good look for NASCAR as well. But I mean, why can't we do both here? Come on.
Make it a Canada stint where they go back-to-back weekends, Montreal to Toronto.
It would make it a lot more worthwhile for the teams in terms of getting passports and stuff. Like, it does make a lot of sense there.
Maybe just do a Canadian road trip. Come out to the Pacific Northwest. We can treat you nice out here in Vancouver as well. And then just head down for your West Coast swing after that. Start the season off in Canada. That's where we all want to see the season start anyways. But yeah, there's a lot of potential here.
To be more realistic, I could very easily see them doing something where they have a specific date for a quote international race, and each year going to, or having like a rotation, and you go to Gilles Villeneuve and then you go to Mexico City the next year, and then the year after that you go to Toronto, because then in that regard you get that international race, or maybe having a couple dates there. You don't have to go to it every single year. It keeps things fresh. And then when you do go every like third year or second year or whatever it is, it makes it more of like an event and stuff like that, which makes it more appealing to fans, makes it more profitable for organizers and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of potential different ideas that they're looking at in terms of having rotating dates across multiple years, going to different places, and it's all trending in a very, very interesting way. Obviously, we want to see specifically much more variation between different schedules at different levels.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that remains to be seen if they go down that route again. But in terms of kind of these little details we got over the last couple of days, I'm a big, big fan.
Yeah, if this is the time to do it, next gen car, new schedule kind of thing. Look at new options. This is where you time to strike.
They went to Japan and Australia.
I know.
We can do that then. We can go to freaking Canada and Mexico now.
There's no excuses. I'm sorry. Obviously, COVID permitting, but we'll see.
I can't believe they went to damn Suzuka in those cars back then. Like that's nuts.
That is crazy. It's a totally forgotten part of NASCAR history too. Nobody really talks about it, but nonetheless, I think that'll do it for the news and notes portion of today's episode. Let's look at the throwback paint schemes for this weekend quickly here. I'll give you my top 5 and some honorable mentions and the worst one of all. Should I start off with the worst? Or should I go? No, start off with the best. Start off with the best. Okay, we'll go from number 5 to number 1, and it's only one Cup Series one in the top 5 here.
Wow!
And that is that's number 5. It's Aric Almirola's Mark Martin Win Dixie throwback paint scheme. Totally unique. Totally fun. I love the red. I love the yellow. I love the flames kind of look to it. Totally unique.
Oh, this is okay. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. This is a scheme, I gotta say.
I think it looks really sick, and it's something that isn't brought up too much in terms of NASCAR history. I love that they found like this kind of niche throwback, and you can't go wrong with that one. I was really pleasantly surprised by the way it looks. So I'm pretty happy with it
as well on the hood there. Like I like it. That's a good.
And it has Win Dixie on the side as well. Yeah. So that's huge that they got the sponsor. So big ups to Aric Almirola there. Despite not having a great season on the track, he's going to be looking pretty sporty this weekend at a track that he's had decent success at as well. Number four, we go down to the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series for this one.
Okay.
You're going to like this one, I think. This is Ron Hornaday Jr. throwback paint scheme for Chris Wright in the 02 truck, 2005 Goodwrench paint scheme.
Oh, yes. I think I did see this one.
I love this paint scheme.
This is 10 out of 10. Yeah,
you can't get any better really than this for the truck series.
Sponsor as well. Oh.
Yeah, so clever with the play on words that you can't. It can't be topped for the truck series. In my opinion, that is the only truck series one on here as well.
And it's great to see truck series throwing it back to other truck series as well. I see.
Yes.
There's a lot of the time where the truck series will try to throw it back to like a Cup Series guide or something along those lines. No, the truck series has a great history. Throw it back to some of the truck series stuff. So I like that shout.
Thank you. Okay, number 3. I've got it basically a tie for number 3 here because there's two cars that go the same here. Because
make it tied for second then, not tied for third.
No, because it's like the same kind of throwback for the same driver. So it's Brandon Brown and Jeremy Clements for the Dale Jarrett throwbacks. Both of them totally awesome. Like these schemes are sick. The UPS paint schemes, you can't go wrong with either one. Either one, they look solid. I couldn't decide between the two of them. 2 different eras of Dale Jarrett UPS paint schemes. I'm giving them both a third place here. They're tied for that one. I can't give one the edge over the other. So it just reminds me of 2007 kind of, Dale Jarrett and Dale Jarrett vibes. So I couldn't say no to the what can Brown do it for you for Brandon Brown. I thought that was a really, really good kind of slogan there with UPS and play on words. So clever from both guys there. Jeremy Clements and Brandon Brown get the honor of third place. We go up to second here. This is just missed out on the number 1 paint scheme, but it's in the Xfinity Series. It's a Junior Motorsports one. It's Josh Berry's paint scheme, the throwback to Dale Jr.'s 2001 Pepsi 400 victory at Daytona.
Yes. This one was announced a while ago.
Yeah, and it has Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt Jr. on kind of like the side there, like in that iconic photo. Looks basically identical. Beautiful paint scheme. Really love that Josh Berry is paying tribute to his owner and one of his best friends there in Dale Earnhardt Jr. I couldn't be happier to see a paint scheme like this. It looks so good, and really happy that is being thrown back to, because it does not get the deserve and the love it deserves from in terms of how that paint scheme, how good it looks. So that goes at number 2. And number one is also from Junior Motorsports. I think this paint scheme may be one of my favorite paint schemes I've ever seen in NASCAR. I don't know. I just think it works so good. It's Michael Annette's Gatorade paint scheme. Beautiful. Absolutely perfection.
It's amazing.
The old Gatorade logo, the green, the orange, the white, it just works. It absolutely
to get Gatorade as well
knocks your sock off. And just beautiful paint scheme. I could not have that at number one. So I was very impressed with the lower series this year, and that's going to take the cake as number one.
Yeah.
Xfinity and trucks really deliver. The Cup Series had their usual good paint scheme. So let's look at some of the honorable mentions. No, it was just, I don't think they really can go with the theme anymore because they're running out of eras. So, but for honorable mentions here, Eric Darnell throwing it back to himself as he returned to the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series for the first time since 2012. I was a big Eric Darnell guy because I love
throwback to yourself there.
I loved that paint scheme for the 99 truck when he used to race in the truck series. I remember when I first had my first NASCAR video game, NASCAR 08, and I used to race that truck all the time. I don't know why, but I really loved the look of it. So Eric Darnell gets the honors of an honorable mention. Tyler Ankrum for the Wonder Bread throwback paint scheme to Ricky Bobby himself in Talladega Nights. It's a really nice paint scheme. I've seen it before, but it still deserves an honorable mention. I'll give I'll give credit where credit is due to Tyler Ankrum. And then these other two from Hendrick Motorsports. I really, really like Alex Bowman's throwback to his crew chief, Greg Ives, in his late model days. I think it's just, it's obviously simple. The color scheme, vibrant, it works. I wish I got to see this under the lights on Sunday rather than
it looks really cool.
Sunday day race. So really, really, just a really cool nod to his crew chief there, who do not get the love they deserve in this sport. It's really cool to see Alex Bowman throwing it back to Greg Ives. And then last but not least, NASCAR's most popular driver, Chase Elliott, gets the Alan Quickie throwback paint scheme, gets an honorable mention. I think it's just, they nailed it. They got the font right. It's just, it's a beautiful looking car. I couldn't quite put it in the top 5 because we've seen that car in so many different replays and everything over the years, but I think still it's a beautiful paint scheme. And I'll give it to him that he did not throw back to his dad on this occasion. He did an Alan Quickie one. So that gives it a good,
also
good
why isn't that just like the main Hooters scheme? Like it just is like top tier stuff.
I don't know.
You know.
It begs the question. It really does. But it's so good, so good. Yeah. But
is it time to get to the worst one?
It's so bad, man. It is so bad. And just their reasoning behind it too. Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s paint scheme this weekend.
I did see.
Nod to Ricky Craven and that historic win here at Darlington. Oh my God, this thing is ugly.
It's just not a throwback.
And it's not a throwback. It's not even the part where they put the tide on the car looks nothing like how the actual tide car looked when Craven ran the paint scheme. So
JTG low key has some of the worst paint schemes week in, week out. Like it is pretty rough.
Many sponsors, they mesh it all together and they try and make it as something that it's good. And I'm sorry, you can't claim that as a throwback. You can't even claim that as a paint scheme. It's just yuck on a car. It's just a waste of money for a wrap. It's terrible. It's disgusting. That's one of the worst throwback paint schemes that they've ever kind of tried to claim as a throwback paint scheme I think I've ever seen. So it reminds me of that one that we did last year where Tyler Reddick threw that paint scheme back to Jeff Burton in that blue, yellow, and red.
That's right.
Like, what are you doing? It doesn't work. The colors don't work, and this does not work whatsoever at all. So the gradient looks terrible. Everything looks bad about it.
Yeah.
Get it off my screen. So, that's the worst throwback. I couldn't really give anybody else that bad of a claim. It's just so bad compared to everybody else that it was only deserving of that. So good paint schemes overall, although the Cup Series has got some good ones. Joe Gibbs Racing's ones are a little bit disappointing this year, but nonetheless.
Yeah, one thing that I did see that I want to give a shout out to, I love seeing Bubba Wallace do the Wendell Scott throwback. Yeah. Great to see, given all the branding and everything that's gone along with that team. Great to see that throwback, and awesome to see Eric Jones do the John Andretti throwback as well. Obviously for sentimental reasons, and it's also just a great scheme as well. So really cool to see those two.
Yep, shout out to Eric Jones for winning the Pro Invitational race earlier this week as well. So that was cool for him.
He's good at this racetrack.
Yeah, he is. We'll see if he makes an appearance in the fantasy preview here in a second, but back to Wendell Scott quickly. The only reason I didn't have it as an honorable mention is because he ran something similar.
Yeah, no. I'm not calling you out.
To the Truck Series one that he won at Martinsville back in his KBM days. I gave it kind of just because of that. I went with something that was original, creative, and that's why.
Yeah, but I was less talking about the cars themselves and more the reasoning for the throwbacks for those ones. But,
well done. I
like your list.
Thank you very much. And that does it for the Throwback Paint Scheme ranking for this season. And that's kind of Throwback Weekend in a nutshell. Don't like it that it's earlier this season. I'd much prefer it as Labor Day.
It doesn't feel very hyped.
No, it doesn't.
It felt like it was
NBC did a better job. I better see classic Fox graphics this weekend. I will lose it if I don't.
You won't.
I'm sorry, but there's no excuse. You've known for a long time. You have to just give me some classic Fox graphics. It takes too much
manpower for them to go and do they won't. Every single time.
NBC does at least the logo.
I know.
Come on.
I know. We might see a little bit, but I feel like also with it being like a throwback race, like either late in the regular season, so like the importance is kind of like you win and you're in, especially for those, or as it was last time, the opening week of the playoffs. It's just kind of that added spectacle to it. Under the lights as well, really added. Like it just feels kind of forced this weekend, and it's Mother's Day weekend as well. Like let the focus be on like the Mother's Day stuff, and I don't know. It's just very like, I don't know if forced is the right word, but it just doesn't feel right. I don't know. And maybe when it gets on track, it looks great and we all like change our stance, but all race cars look better under the lights. And for that reason, Throwback Weekend should be under the lights.
Total agreement there. So that does it for the Throwback Paint Scheme kind of rankings list, if you will. It's NASCAR Fantasy time once again, Kyle, for Darlington. The first edition of Darlington this year, of course, having 2 races returned to the calendar this season. I
think this is the last regular season race at a track that we go to in the playoffs. Am I not mistaken there? I think so. I think I saw that somewhere.
Bristol. You don't count Bristol because it was on the dirt, so... Yeah.
Well, we don't go to Bristol again the rest of the regular season.
Well, no. Yeah, but you're maybe right. I don't know.
I think it is.
Maybe it is.
Because a lot of the second half of the regular season is road courses and new places. So yeah. I think it is.
You're probably right on that. I'll take your word for it, though. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, you're right. I don't care.
I think I either saw it or heard it somewhere, but I apologize if I'm wrong.
Nonetheless, Darlington Fantasy. Despite me getting the race winner pick right last week for Kansas, your boy Kyle Busch winning at Kansas Speedway. I lost in fantasy last week due to Ryan Blaney and Kyle Larson taking each other out on the green-white checkered restart. So props to Larson for trying to spin Blaney and send him in at Narnia going into turn 1. Appreciate that, buddy. Just trying to help a
guy out. Just push him to the win.
Yep, and they ended up finishing 19th and 21st. So how'd that work out for you, Mr. Larson? But, so that's the reason I lost last week, but I will take the race winner pick.
213 to 200, so it was still pretty close. But
yeah, I'll it's a loss that's worth having if Kyle Busch can end up in victory lane. I'll lose every weekend from here on out.
And head-to-head, you're up 6-5 still, so still very close in that regard as well.
Yeah, overall, we're less than 100 points apart, so it's been very closely contested, unlike last year. So good to you, Mr. Cushman, for making a name for yourself here this year.
You gotta cut me some slack.
All right, I'll cut you some slack here, but not this weekend at Darlington. This is one of my favorite race weekends of the year, just because it is Darlington and the Throwback Weekend kind of goes along with it. Of
750 horsepower again. You got to really drive the track like
it's going to be slick. It's going to be hot. It's going to be awesome. Looking forward to the race. Should be interesting to see how the package works out this time around, rather than the 550 one that we saw at 3 occasions here at Darlington last
it's so
season.
Crazy to think about that we went here 3 times last year.
We are closing in on the 1-year anniversary of NASCAR returning, about 10 days away from that. So curious to see if they do anything special for that. But it's just nice to see that NASCAR is back on track here. Back at Darlington. So let's start us off here. I believe I kicked things off for fantasy this weekend. 6 picks. Let's get it started off here. with the guy that won NASCAR's Return to Race last year at Darlington Raceway. It's Kevin Harvick going in my fantasy lineup this weekend. He's got an average finish over the last 5 races here of 2.6. Yeah, this guy is good. 2 wins, 5 top 5s in those 5 races, 201 laps led, and he starts second. This is a driver's racetrack. This is where experience pays off at the utmost, and Kevin Harvick is that in a nutshell. So I really like the 4 car this weekend. Maybe he won't win it, but I think they're starting to slowly get a little bit better. Finished second at Kansas, was a top 5 car, I would say there, top 6 car most of the race as well. So I think the signs are good there for Kevin Harvick, that he's slowly getting back to what we saw of him last season, and hopefully this is the starting point of where he starts to break through and get some victories here over the course of the summer months. So he's the first guy, my first selection in my fantasy lineup this weekend.
Yep, and I've got him too here. Obviously, a driver's racetrack. You have to take the results the last couple years with a bit of a grain of salt, just given 550 horsepower versus 750 coming up to this race. So 200 horsepower is a lot. And we see that week in, week out between the different packages. But that being said, Harvick's great here regardless of the package. You look back to 2018, he finished 4th. And then last year finished inside the top 3 each race and won 2 of them as well. So I've got 8 usages left on him. I'm not concerned about that right now. And another thing as well is they've been pretty solid on the 750 horsepower tracks this season. 6th at Phoenix, 9th at Martinsville. Richmond was a bit of a swing and a miss, but I feel good about that starting position. As you mentioned, the history at the track, everything leads towards Harvick being a pretty solid usage this time around.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's pretty unanimous this weekend. If you save some Harvick usages early on in the going here, you let him loose here this weekend. I don't see much risk in it. If he doesn't do great in the first 2 stages, maybe you garage him then. But I think it's a pretty low risk selection here with Harvick. So who do you got for number 2?
Number 2 for this one, and I'm going to somebody that's been lights out so far this season at the 750 horsepower package tracks, to the Penske stable, and that's Joey Logano for this one. He doesn't have a win in his career at Darlington. I think there's a decent chance that he could go out and potentially get that first win at this track this weekend. Looking at the 750 results so far this season, 2nd at Phoenix, 6th at Martinsville, and 3rd at Richmond. And of course, that 3rd at Richmond probably should have been at least a 2nd, if not the win, if it wasn't for some late race shenanigans in that one. But Logano in that 22 team, they've struggled a bit at 550 horsepower tracks, but have really, really succeeded so far this year at 750 horsepower tracks. I really like them coming into this weekend. Not the greatest starting position in the world of 12th, but again, I don't think that really matters too much. I like driver's racetrack, as we've talked about. I like him even more at this track with the 750 horsepower package as well. Team seem to be clicking with this package. Driver's been clicking with this package. I like Logano this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a really good pick. I'm undetermined on Mr. Logano right now.
Okay.
We'll see on him.
The usage situation, I've got 8 usages for Logano still, so feel pretty good about him early on this year.
I've got 7 left on Harvick, so I think I can let one loose here when I look at the road courses coming up this summer. So for my second selection, I'm going to go with a guy that I've kind of been pretty cautious on with usages to start this season, and it's your defending champion, Chase Elliott's in my lineup this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been waiting. I've got 8 usages left on the 9 car. I've been saving them for some road courses, of course, over the season, but I like the 9 car quite a bit this weekend here at Darlington. He's got an average finish over the last 5 races here of 17.2. So that's going to scare some people off, I think, a little bit of the 9 car. But this guy could have won this race in the fall, or I guess late summer last year.
Thanks for the reminder.
Not for the contact with Martin Truex Jr., where Kyle lost fantasy there because he had both of them in his fantasy lineup and they were battling for the lead. And we all know what happened after that. He's got 2 top 5s here in the last 5 races, 151 laps led. He starts 6th in this one. I like Hendrick Motorsports quite a bit this weekend. I think they have a pretty powerhouse of a lineup, and I think Chase Elliott's here to mess with the guys here this weekend. I think he hasn't gotten a win so far. I would not be surprised if the 9 car honestly wins this weekend, because that paint scheme looks really fire, and Chase Elliott hasn't quite found that groove quite yet this season, but this could be a decent place to get it done. And when I think of Chase Elliott, I think of his Xfinity Series win here back in 2013, excuse me, and how he won that race in incredible fashion. So I'm looking forward to seeing the 9 car do some damage this weekend, and I would not be surprised if he could end up in victory lane at the end of 400 miles on Sunday. That does my second selection. Third selection here, I'm going a little bit aggressive in the Hendrick Motorsports stable here this weekend. I've got 6 usages left on him. It's Kyle Larson. I'm going with him here.
Yeah.
The last 2 races, because he missed all 3 of them here last year. He had an average finish of 2.5 in those 2 races, 2 top 5s, of course, 328 laps led in those races. He starts 16th, so he's going to have a little bit of ground to make up in that first stage. But with how well he's run this season, I'm a little bit cautious on the 5 car, just a little bit this weekend, but he's just so good around here that it's hard not to play a usage for him. When I looked at the schedule coming up, road courses aren't his strong suit, so I think I won't be using him at all at those racetracks. So I'm looking at the 1.5 miles. There's not many of them left in the regular season as well. So I like the 5 car. I feel like I can use a usage here, and then I'm halfway down with the 5 car at a little bit closer to the front end of the halfway point of the regular season. But you factor in the road course amount that we have for the remaining part of the regular season, it'll balance itself out. So I feel good about using a Larson usage here at Darlington.
Yeah, so for starters, I'm undecided on Chase Elliott for this one. Depending on how things play out the rest of the way, I might have to try and match you on that one, even though I don't really want to, even though he's been really good here. I'm just a little bit scared of using him, of course. Yeah. But Kyle Larson, I do absolutely have in my lineup here. I'm down to 5 usages, though, so I got to be a little more conservative on him there. But as you just laid out there, this is the 12th race of the season so far. 26 races in the regular season, if I'm not mistaken, which means we're basically at halfway when you look at the second half of the schedule, much more road courses and stuff like that. So again, I'm not very concerned whatsoever about the usage situation for myself with Kyle Larson. I knew going into the season, the first half of the regular season really kind of laid out very well for his return, and we've seen that so far this season, especially with how fast that 5 car has been on 550 horsepower package tracks. And that's the one thing that does give me a little bit of pause, is the fact that it's a 750 horsepower track, which doesn't make sense when you think about Kyle Larson and driver talent and stuff. But that 5 car has been the dominant car on 550 horsepower tracks so far this season, less so at 750 horsepower. And the big thing is that Richmond result. We're going in, you look at the numbers, and you would think that he could have had a dominant day and barely saw the top 10, if at all, that day. Yeah. That being said, the past few results with Chip Ganassi have been borderline dominant for this guy at this track. 124 laps led in 2017, 284 in 2018, and with the different package as well in 2019, still led 44 laps, still finished second. So Darlington is what we call a driver's track. We've said it multiple times already. And when you think about driver's tracks, you think Kyle Larson. So he's absolutely in my lineup, even though the uses just are starting to wane down a little bit when it comes to him there. For my next one, though, I think I'll go to my more conservative pick for the weekend. Somebody that I'm not concerned about usages on for the entire season. I feel good about the kind of groove that they've been on recently, good starting position, and some sneaky good results both on 750 horsepower tracks this season and at Darlington in the past. It's my boy Matt DiBenedetto in the lineup for myself this weekend. Wow. Yes, I'm going with the DiBenedetto swing on this one. Last season,
you used him here last year as well, didn't you?
Yes, DiBenedetto at Darlington last year, 14th in the first race, 9th in the second race, and then in the playoff race was a little bit off the pace in that one, 21st. But in 2019 with Levine Family Racing, finished 8th here as well. And when I think about DiBenedetto, I prefer him at the 750 horsepower tracks as well. And this season, 14th at Phoenix, the next 750 race moved up to 12th at Martinsville, and the next one after that, 9th at Richmond. I like the way that this team is trending so far this season. I like the Penske Alliance going into this weekend. I like the Benedetto at Darlington for this weekend. And for that reason, I was looking for a bit of a more conservative pick to help round up my lineup, somebody where I wasn't concerned about usages on them, where if one of my bigger hitters had some issues, I could put somebody else in that I felt safe in terms of the usage situation. So Matt DiBenedetto is my 4th entry to the lineup, going a bit off the board for that one.
I'm kind of surprised that you went with him this weekend. The numbers aren't bad. I'm just surprised that you decided to go that route. But
yeah, the big thing is the trend that they've been on, the way that they've been progressing at 750 horsepower tracks, and when you look at some of the average finishes over those tracks, looks pretty solid going into this weekend. In addition to a good starting position, which has been largely unattainable for DiBenedetto so far this season.
Yeah, fair enough. My 4th selection here for my fantasy lineup this weekend, going to the Team Penske stable for this one, but not Joey Logano. Going to go with his teammate, Brad Keselowski. He's on pole position. He's got some good numbers here. Over the last 5 races, has an average finish of 6.8, 1 win, 3 top 5s, 130 laps led. I like the numbers. I like the situation that Brad's in right now. He started on pole last week at Kansas, got some good stage points. I think he gets something similar here this weekend. I'm a little bit hesitant to use him here. I think I have 6 usages left on Keselowski right now. I think he's a value steal at some of these road courses maybe over this summer, so I'm a bit hesitant to maybe use him here this weekend. But just based off of past success here, it's a driver's racetrack. I think Keselowski has really improved at these kinds of tracks as well, so I like him quite a bit this weekend. So I'm going to go with the 2 car as my 4th selection here. Number 5. This is tough. This is getting a little bit tough because you went with Joey Logano. You got with Matt DiBenedetto. I'm in no position right now where I feel like I need to use either both of those guys right now. So I'm going to stay away from them for now, for the time being. My 5th selection for this race weekend, it's going to be Kurt Busch. I'm going to go with Kurt Busch.
Okay.
I've really liked his numbers here. And he's got an average finish of the last 5 races of 7.8, 4 top 10s in that span, 99 laps led. He starts 17th, so he's going to have some ground to make up, but I think the 1 car could be there at the finish. I'm a little bit hesitant on him this weekend just because of how poor his success has been so far up to this point. He just hasn't found that consistent Kurt Busch style that we are so accustomed to seeing week in and week out. Hasn't quite been there. So hopefully he finds that this weekend and gets a solid finish. If I can get like 30 points out of Kurt Busch this weekend, that would be huge. I think that would be an awesome usage for him, and hopefully that's the case. But I'm going with a veteran-based lineup here for Darlington for as the reasons we've stated so far.
Keselowski is a nice swing there. I don't think I'm going to go with him in my lineup, which is a little interesting to say given the vast difference in usage situation between the 2 of us on him.
That's nuts to me. I thought he would be for sure in your lineup.
The concern for me is I feel better about them at 550 horsepower tracks this season, and maybe looking more to use them there. On 750, they've been good, but not great, and they've also had some bad luck. They had the 4th at Phoenix, but then 33rd at Martinsville, but before that were kind of like a low-end top 10 car. And then at Richmond, obviously had the lap down situation and stuff like that, where they probably should have been in that like top 5 to top 7 range and ended up with a 14th place finish. But I decided to go elsewhere for some of my bigger name drivers for this weekend. For Kurt Busch, I like the swing. I'm just a little hesitant there just because of the 750 results so far this season. 15th at Phoenix, 21st at Martinsville, 13th at Richmond. Could definitely go up there at a driver's track. Of course, he's got one of the most famous moments in NASCAR history at this track, for crying out loud. Yeah. So he could obviously go out and do it. Don't forget he was on the losing end of that as well. So
Pontiac nose, man. It's the Pontiac nose.
I've got picks 5 and 6 for myself coming up here. So rounding out my lineup, and I'll begin with your defending race winner, Kyle Busch, in the lineup for this one. I like the mojo that they've got going right now. The fact that
Are you a closet Kyle Busch fan or something? What's going on here?
No, furthest thing from it. But they got the win, got the monkey off the back in that regard in terms of the season. But they've also been trending in a good direction at 750 horsepower package tracks. Started with the 25th at Phoenix, kind of a messy start to the season, but then 10th at Martinsville, 8th at Richmond. I like the way things have been trending. The big thing, though, is 750 horsepower, driver's track, and Kyle Busch. And having the win, having that starting position, and being a driver's track, all these things I feel like should combine to be a big day for Kyle going into this weekend. I could also very clearly see it where they have an early issue and it's just a very frustrating day for him. But taking a bit of a swing here on Kyle Busch for this one, with the starting position, with some of the mojo I feel like that team should have going into this weekend, and kind of the direction they've been trending at 750 horsepower track. So Kyle Busch is in the lineup for this one. And the usage situation for myself on him, I've got 7 usages left. So again, feel pretty good about him, not super concerned in that regard. And to round out the lineup, have to go with this guy, right? It's Denny Hamlin. He's been the mantra of consistency.
Wow.
A great racetrack for him here. Going back to the 750 horsepower package as well. 2017 won the race, led 124 laps. 2018 was on pole for that one, but finished 10th. Was good, not great here last year in terms of having the 5th in the first race, winning the second one, but then only 13th in the playoff race here. But Denny Hamlin has been super consistent. When I look at the 750 horsepower results as well, 3rd at Phoenix, 3rd at Martinsville, 2nd at Richmond, and probably should have won Richmond as well. Denny Hamlin, just been super consistent. I like him, especially at 750 horsepower tracks. So I'm rounding up my lineup with a couple of Toyotas and the JGR entries there, and Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin. Not going with Chase Elliott in the lineup for this one.
Oh, shoot. Damn it.
So, at least as it stands right now, we got fairly different lineups here.
Yeah.
So we both got Kyle Larson and Kevin Harvick, but outside of that.
Yeah. Indeed.
You've got Elliot, you've got Brad Keselowski, and Kurt Busch. So you could potentially match me on one of the 4, or we could have a rare circumstance where we've got vastly different lineups here.
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
Where's your head at? What are you thinking here?
Well, I initially had William Byron here as my last pick.
I don't mind that shout.
Yeah, I know. I don't either. But at the same time, I'm just looking at the schedule. And Denny Hamlin's name does not stand out to me as some of the favorites at these tracks. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with Hamlin then because I've got 6 usages left on it. And I thought I was in more of a dire situation on the 11 car than I am. I'm gonna go with him. I'm gonna go with him as my last.
I've got 6 as well for Hamlin. We're matched on Hamlin.
It's an honorable mention, but I didn't. Yeah. So after you used him last week, I guess, right, at Kansas, and I didn't. Correct.
Yep. We're back.
Hello?
I think. You've been pausing a little bit in and out, but can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why my internet. Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know why my internet connection is unstable.
That's all.
But
good.
yeah, for Denny Hamlin, I mean the numbers are self-explanatory. He's always so good around here, and I was in a position here where I didn't have any Toyotas in my lineup, but the fact that you went with 2, I feel like I need to compensate with 1. I'll go with Hamlin as my last selection here to round out my fantasy lineup for this weekend. So, yeah, that'll do it for that. Honorable mentions for this weekend. I said William Byron, I think, is definitely a value usage this weekend. The numbers may not support it in terms of the finish, but he's had some issues here where he's been caught up in stuff, and he's been really consistent this season. You can't really bet against the 24 car right now. Starts 5th in this one, so he's got good track position from the get-go. He could probably get a good amount of stage points in this one. I just like some of his other teammates more at the finish of this one. Martin Truex Jr., just a usage situation for me this weekend. I can't use him. I think there's just the road courses are way too valuable to try and fill out somebody that's going to be good at those tracks. And Martin Truex Jr. is definitely one of those guys. So Truex is an honorable mention for sure. Can't fit him into my lineup, though, this weekend at 6 usage is way, way too valuable. Kyle Busch, you have him in your lineup. I have him as an honorable mention. The only reason I didn't have him in my lineup was just because of his post-race interview after Kansas, where he was like, we're struggling a little bit on the 750 horsepower packages, and they're making gains, so I'm going to wait till we see those gains on the track before I put him in my lineup here.
Fair enough.
I think he's a sneaky good road course racer that does not get talked about enough over these summer months. Eric Jones, I think for 400 miles, the 43 car could maybe get you a good finish. Because, this guy is absolutely phenomenal here at Darlington. His numbers are insane. Over the last 5 races, 5.2 average finish. Of course, has the victory there in the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. 3 top 5s, 106 laps led. He's been masterful here. Won the Pro Invitational earlier this weekend. He clearly knows how to get around this track. For being a veteran track that really, showcases the veterans, Eric Jones has been one of those exceptions where the younger guys have done really well, and he is definitely one of those. So I think he could be absolutely a good value usage this weekend. He could get a top 10 run potentially. I think that there's definitely the possibility here because he has run good on these 750 horsepower tracks.
I'm glad you mentioned that
and
there.
I mean, yeah.
Because he has not finished outside the top 10 so far in his Darlington Cup Series career. In fact, he's not finished worse than 8th so far in his Darlington Cup Series career. Does the streak continue? Does he get a top 10 here for Richard Petty Motorsports?
I would love that streak. Would love it.
With the John Andretti throwback, it would be an awesome storyline. I don't think I can bet on it happening, but I think he's definitely going to be a top 15 guy. And I think this is really going to show where we're kind of at with the 43, because this is a guy who has performed at an elite level with a big team at this track. Let's see what he can do with the 43. And I think that's going to give us a real good indication as to where this team is at, because if Eric Jones at this track finishes 16th, 17th, I think that's a big indictment as to where that 43 team is at right now. If he's able to go out and contend it for a top 10 spot, I think that shows a lot more where they're at in terms of just overall pace. So I'm very interested to see where that 43 car ends up this weekend, because Eric Jones is nothing short of remarkable at this racetrack. And I'm very, very interested to see where he goes, because as you mentioned, 6 races, 4 top 5s, a win, 6 top 10s, 100% top 10 percentage, and a 5.2 average finish in his career here. It's just stupid numbers.
Yeah, he's so impressive here, and I really, really want him to do well this weekend. This is going to be the clearest depiction of what the 43 car has and what Eric Jones has behind the wheel of a race car. This is by far his best track on the Cup Series calendar. This is the perfect track for him to showcase that this weekend at Darlington. So I think he's definitely an honorable mention. If you've overused some of your top guys so far, throw him in there, see what he can do. And there's no really risk to putting an Eric Jones usage out there. He could potentially surprise you and get some good, solid end finishing points. Not the stage points that you're looking for, because he's starting pretty far back, but for the actual finish itself with the checkered flag, look out for Eric Jones to maybe do something there with the 43 car. And as well, the RCR duo of Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick. I think both of those guys have really good value this weekend. I've said Austin Dillon's name quite a bit on these honorable mentions, and I've been just reluctant to pull the trigger on him in my fantasy lineup itself. But the 3 car is sneaky good this season, man, and I could see him doing some damage, getting a top 10 run this week, top 8 finish even this weekend at Darlington. Impressed last year in the playoff race. I think the 3 car could do something similar here again when considering how well they've run so far this season. And his teammate Tyler Reddick runs the wall like nobody's business. Probably hurts him a little bit more here at Darlington rather than Homestead, but I think he could do something and get a solid top 14, top 15 run in the 8 car. So they're definitely good shouts for value picks this weekend.
Good starting
and
positions
then
as well
Alex
for those
Bowman.
2.
Yep, Alex Bowman. He's got decent numbers here. Got the 14th best average finish. I think that's 12th against amongst active drivers. So not bad for Bowman here. Just just waiting for him to find his form on a consistent enough basis. It's been kind of all over the place for the 48 cars so far. Has the victory, of course, but beyond that, it's been kind of static and scattered in places in terms of his finishing results. So love the throwback scheme. Hopefully it does well on the track itself. Joey Logano, honorable mention for sure. He got some great numbers here. Sixth amongst active drivers in terms of average finish over the last 5 races. 22 car can come the checker flag, but I don't know. I liked Keselowski a little bit more out of the Penske stable here for this race specifically. And then as well, last honorable mention here, Chase Briscoe. He won the Xfinity Series race here in a very spectacular fashion against Kyle Busch last season. And, he can maybe do a little bit of something this weekend. We haven't seen much from the entire SHR stable really so far for the first 11 races of this season. Maybe this is where Chase Briscoe finally picks up a little bit of speed and gets a solid finish, because that's what that team desperately needs so far. The 14 car hasn't been bad around here at Darlington either, so we'll see what happens with the 14. But Chase Briscoe, I'll throw him in there as an honorable mention. For my stay away froms for this weekend, there's only 3 of them, 2 really specifically, but 3 overall. Bubba Wallace is one, just because the numbers aren't great around here. I'm a bit hesitant on the 23 car right now. I wouldn't look to him this weekend. Christopher Bell as well. Poor numbers last season for Levine Family Racing, and I'm just going to play it cautious. I think his teammates are going to be much better suited for candidates this weekend.
There's one thing
much like the Hendrick stable, much more.
For Christopher Bell here, just because there's been 5 drivers so far this season at Phoenix, Martinsville, Richmond, the 3 750 horsepower tracks that we've been to so far this year that have finished inside the top 10 for all of them. Christopher Bell is actually one of them. 9th at Phoenix, 7th at Richmond, 7th at Martinsville, 4th at Richmond. I'm a little hesitant in terms of the track, and that's why I didn't have him in my lineup here. But it seems like Adam Stevens in that 20 car seems to have a real good groove for 750 horsepower tracks. Interested to see where they line up in terms of the end result here, because as you mentioned, the numbers not necessarily great here. Wasn't great either coming up through the ranks. Doesn't have a win here, if I'm not mistaken, at the lower levels, unlike Richmond, where he was pretty dominant. So interested to see where he ends up, because the 750 results so far this year would suggest a kind of solid top 10 finish, average finish of 6.7 so far this season at 750 horsepower tracks. I'm a little more hesitant, like you mentioned there, on that one, though.
Yeah. And then last but not least, Ryan Blaney. Self-explanatory. Yep. The 12 car is pretty bad around here.
And they haven't been good so far on 750 horsepower tracks. Yeah.
No, not good for these kinds of. This of Blaney's very few tracks that he struggles for whatever reason. He's run some of the best throwback paint schemes out there, just can't quite get a good. I'll give Blaney, Christopher Bell, and Bubba Wallace to stay away from there. But that's the fantasy stay away from honorable mentions and our lineups. Let's get to the bonus.
There's
picks
one name
for the end of this episode.
Unless I'm dumb and just completely missed it. Martin Truex Jr. Did you mention his name at all? I think I maybe I forgot to mention him, maybe, but I have him in as an honorable mention for sure. Because he's got the obviously 2 wins.
Is sneaky good with lots
2 wins so far this season on the 750 horsepower package tracks, 5th at Richmond as well. Just the usage situation. Otherwise, I definitely have him in my lineup here. Of course, I had him in my lineup here for the playoff race, and we all know how that went on the last few laps there. But sorry, I just couldn't remember if you talked about him at all. So I wanted to get that one in there.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get to the bonus picks then. Who leads us off for this one?
You do for Chevy here.
Okay. For top Chevrolet finisher, I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson. Okay. His numbers are just too damn good around here. I have Chase Elliott written down, but the more that I've thought about it, I think Kyle Larson is just the guy that you kind of want to go with consistently here. Chase Elliott's definitely my second guy that I look at for this one, but Larson, self-explanatory.
Yeah, I've got Larson here as well. Just when you look at the past results and how dominant he's been with a Chip Ganassi car and how we've seen Chip Ganassi perform outside of Larson and without Larson the last year as well, I think really shows to how good Larson has been in the past. Here with the 5 team with Hendrick, I like them coming to this weekend. They might not necessarily be the favorite per se, given it's not 550 horsepower and how good that team has been specifically with that package. But I really like Larson here to lead the Chevrolets.
Yep. Top Ford finisher, what you got?
Ford is an interesting one here. I've got a coin flip between Logano and Harvick here. But I think I'm actually going to lean Logano for this one. I really like their speed so far this year with the 750 horsepower package. And given you don't have them in the lineup, I'm going to lean into that one a little bit more and try to maximize some points there for that one.
Interesting. I'll go different than for this one. I'll go with Kevin Harvick here for the top Ford finisher. He just got stupid good numbers here at Darlington. And if there's going to be a place where he finds some form, I think this is probably a really good bet for that to take place. So, I like the 4 car. I think Logano is definitely the second guy that I look at. He's probably going to be the top Ford finisher since I didn't pick him, but I'll take that chance. I'll pick
That's
Kevin
part
Harvick
of it as
as
well.
the top Ford. Top Toyota finisher. You got a lot of different options with this one. I think that you look at the top 3, of course, with JGR, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin. I think all 3 of those guys could potentially do something here. Just because I don't have him in my lineup, I'll go with MTJ. I'll say Martin Truex Jr. is the top Toyota just to cover my bases here on this one. I have Hamlin written down, but I think at the end of the day, just taking a whole swing on Hamlin is a little bit too rich for me. I like Truex here for top Toyota.
You would. You totally would. I'm doing the same thing. I had Truex locked in as my top Toyota just because I just can't use him at this point, given some of the road courses coming up. I just wouldn't feel great about trying to use that usage this weekend, even though it could go out and have a massive point stay very easily. I still have a better taste in my mouth from the results from last time we were here at this racetrack. And I feel good about using Truex at some other places later on this year. And some of the other options I've got for this one this time around. That being said, top Toyota, don't have to worry about usages or anything like that for that slot. So I've got Truex in there just to, as you mentioned, cover the bases a little bit because I do like him quite a bit this weekend.
Yep. Winning manufacturer. This is tough. These next 3 categories are really tough.
Yeah, they are. Man, this is a tough one. I really want to say Ford for this one, but I'm going to say Chevrolet. I really, really like Kyle Larson and potentially Chase Elliott for this one.
You would.
And even some of the other Hendrick options, to be honest. But for Chevy here, I like the high end that they got here. I could easily just play Hendrick as the winning organization either and be fine with it. But I think I'll play Chevy for the manufacturer here.
Okay. On that note, I'll go Ford then for manufacturer. I'll switch it up. I'll go to Ford.
I don't like that.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Ford. Toyotas just don't have enough numbers for me to think that they could win it this weekend. I like Ford with Harvick and Keselowski and Logano. I think all 3 of those guys are very, very solid chances to win. So, they're my pick. I initially had Chevrolet. It's been switching around here quite a bit for me from what I had originally.
Which is funny because before we started, you said you were like for sure locked in with what you got, feel good, and all of a sudden we're all out to lunch.
I know. As soon as I start talking, I start to talk myself out of stuff, which is a problem. But for winning organization, since I didn't go Chevrolet for my manufacturer, I'm going to go with one here for the organization. Hendrick Motorsports is my pick here for winning organization.
Oh, winning organization. Taking a bit of a swing on this one. I'm not going to lie. I could easily try and double down, but I don't feel that good about Chevy's or Hendrick coming into this weekend, so I'm not going to go with Hendrick as my winning organization. I am, though, going to go with Joe Gibbs. I actually quite like Martin Truex Jr. this weekend. I quite like Denny Hamlin here this weekend, and I do still like Kyle Busch this weekend as well. I like the trio they got there. I think Bell is a bit of a long shot, but I think he could potentially be in the conversation depending on if that 750 horsepower speed is legit for that 20 team. But I think I'm going to split it and go Chevy for my manufacturer and Joe Gibbs for my winning organization here. A bit different from what I've done the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't double down. You're a big double down guy with Chevrolet. So this is a unique strategy here for Mr. Cushman. So
well, I don't get the first winner
on my
pick,
toes,
so
which is always
I
a good
don't
thing.
want to. Yeah, so I like doubling down when I got the first winner pick, because then I basically know the strategy that I can go into that last one with. When I don't have the first winner pick, I don't feel as good about trying to double down, because if you take my race winner, then all of a sudden I got to go differently, and it's all haywire from there. So
fair enough. All right, we have an Xfinity Series winner pick to pick here. Kyle, you start us off with this one.
Yeah, so I really had no clue for this one. I'm just going to be straight up. So I'm going to go with somebody that I feel has been a little bit due for a win this season. Drivers Racetrack, somebody who is aggressive, and a team that's been kind of clicking in terms of the whole stable a little bit recently. I'm going to say Noah Gragson breaks through for that first win of the season.
I'm going to go with the rookie, Ty Gibbs. I'm going to go with him and say he wins the Xfinity Series race.
Is this not his first race at Darlington?
I don't know, man. Yeah, it is. That's bold. People are claiming him as the next best thing, so it's not like it's never been done before. So, I mean, I could care less about the Xfinity Series winner pick this weekend.
If he does that, then give the guy the 18 car right now in the Cup Series. I don't care.
Oh, get out of here. Get out of here. I'm not standing for that. That's ridiculous. Don't eat that up to me. I don't know. I had a tough time picking one for this one. And the Xfinity Series, there's no Cup guy in it this weekend, so that's kind of unfortunate, where they usually are here at the Darlington race, specifically Denny Hamlin.
Well, if there was the obvious pick, then I would have got it first anyways.
I know, but I still think that, there's still some value there. And then I could pick maybe the top Xfinity guy, but I didn't even want to do that this weekend. So that's the Xfinity Series winner pick. Cup Series, the big one, 15 bonus points on the line. I get first selection with this one.
Where are you going?
And I honestly don't like going first. I don't like it because it gives you too many options to choose from. Outside of the one that I pick, you have 39 other cars you could pick. Well, I just have one. I don't like that as much.
Fair enough.
Cup Series winner pick this weekend.
Who's taking it home?
I'm gonna say we get our 11th different winner in 12 races to start the season. Chase Elliott wins the Throwback race weekend here at Darlington.
Wow.
Yeah.
Going with Chase here. Okay. What I will say is I was debating between two drivers for this one, and you did not take one of my two drivers. I was debating between Denny Hamlin and my race winner pick, going back-to-back with my race winner pick on this one, Kyle Larson for the win here. He was dominant with Chip Ganassi at this racetrack. The higher horsepower, low downforce, I feel like that leans towards his driving style, even though the 5 car's been faster at the different package. I think that this combination of track and package, it's not like they've been slow. on 750 horsepower. They've been solid in speed, and specifically at a track like Phoenix, where he probably should have finished even higher if he didn't have to start from the back about 16 times. So with all that being said, I like the track here. I like the package change. All of that combines for me seeing a big day for Kyle Larson. And so for that, I'm going to take the swing. We're both going 100 drivers. You're going Chase to break through. I'm going to say Kyle Larson gets that win here this weekend.
I'm a little bit surprised you didn't go with a Gibbs car, but I'm also not surprised. I was looking at Larson.
I was very close to picking him.
My second guy, but yeah, I just couldn't quite put Larson in there as my winner pick just because I haven't seen that level of dominance on the 750 horsepower package track so far this season. But saying that, I think he's going to be right up there, top 3 contender for sure. But I think there's something with that 9 car this weekend, man. I don't know. I just got a funny feeling that Chase Elliott could do something here at Darlington. So that does it for the bonus picks. Shall we go through the lineups once more, Kyle, to wrap things up?
Let's do it.
All right. You want to kick us off then?
Sure. We've got very different lineups this weekend, actually, which I'm not super surprised with because Darlington, with the package change and all that, kind of throws last year's results, at least puts an asterisk beside them in terms of projecting to this season. You have to look a little bit further back, maybe have to make some more projections in that regard. And so this weekend, we've both got Kyle Larson, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin. I've got exclusively Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, and taking a swing on my boy Matt DiBenedetto this weekend. For the bonus picks, Larson top Chevy, Logano top Ford, taking the bet on Truex there, not using the usage, but still kind of covering the bases there with a top Toyota swing on that part. Going Chevrolet with my manufacturer, Joe Gibbs with the organization, just kind of covering my bases, split between the two because those are the two that I feel really, really good about this weekend. Xfinity pick, I'll go with Noah Gragson for that one. And your Cup Series race winner, Kyle Larson, goes back to victory lane, this time at Darlington.
Alrighty. For myself, I've got Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, and Kurt Busch as my very veteran-based lineup for the actual fantasy part of it, excuse me. And then for the bonus picks, top Chevrolet, going with Kyle Larson in this one, top Ford, Kevin Harvick, top Toyota, Martin Truex Jr., the winning manufacturer being Ford, the winning organization being Hendrick Motorsports. And to round it all off, we've got the Xfinity Series winner pick being Ty Gibbs and the Cup Series winner pick, Chase Elliott. So lots of differences so far throughout this fantasy. We'll see which one actually comes out on top when it's all said and done after the checker flag falls on Sunday evening at Darlington Raceway. So any final thoughts before we wrap up another episode here, Kyle?
Yeah, feel good going into this weekend. I really like the change back to 750 horsepower at Darlington. It's just such a great track and giving the drivers the horsepower there to really work with and have to manhandle the cars and stuff like that. Very interested to see how things go this weekend compared to the 3 races last year. And maybe seeing that difference might lean NASCAR towards adding more 750 horsepower tracks. We'll see about that into the future, but at the very least, going to be a fun weekend back at Darlington here.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag Pod, as well as Twitter at The Green Flag Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. We'd really appreciate it. All the links to our social channels will be in the description of the video itself. But for this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman, signing off for now. We will talk to you, or I will talk to you, after the Darlington race weekend here, the Throwback weekend. Enjoy the paint schemes and enjoy the racing, everybody.